So what started out as a typical slow sports day, a sports day where there is no NHL, there is no NBA basketball scheduled, and what we really had going on most of the day was a report about Adam Schefter and how he's actually going to be a sideline reporter at the Travelers PGA Tour event this weekend. That was the big sports story of the day. That was, of course, until the bombshell dropped that the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that had not been for sale, by the way, it's not like they had a for sale sign on their front doors, was sold for $10 billion. We're going to get into that, what this actually means for the Los Angeles Lakers and the rest of the National Basketball Association. And I will tell you right now, this is a good thing for the NBA and for basketball fans around the globe. All right, welcome back to the NBA Rundown. As always, North America. I'm Dave DeBaugh, coming to you live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley. Our podcast has had over 1.5 million plays over the past year and a half. So thanks so much for all of your support. Hey, if you're new to the channel, wherever you're hearing this, please go ahead and subscribe. All right, so let's get into the details, shall we? Now, I want to start by saying Mark Walter, who is in charge of TGW, the same group that actually went out and basically bought a majority stake in the Los Angeles Dodgers, also owns part of an F1 Cup team and a football team in Europe in Chelsea FC. He is, if you will, the person who essentially is in charge of the TGW fund that is buying the majority stake of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, they had already invested in the Los Angeles Lakers a few years ago and had actually acquired a 27% stake in the LA Lakers. Now, today's news that the $10 billion valuation for the Los Angeles Lakers is what Mark Walters and the TGW group is actually going to pay. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're handing over $10 billion to the Buss family at this point. It just means they are actually acquiring a majority stake in the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, we don't know yet at this stage exactly what that stake is. Still, the $10 billion valuation is a jaw-dropping valuation. If we talk about some of the other teams that have been recently sold in the association over the last couple years, you have the fiasco in Minnesota where the owner sold the team for $1.5 billion when he could have probably gotten $3 billion, and then he tried to back out in the deal, and ultimately that didn't happen, with A-Rod and his crew now taking over the Minnesota Timberwolves organization. We know what happened with the Boston Celtics and the $6.1 billion final sale that is in the process of being approved by the National Basketball Association. So to take that leap from $6.1 billion to $10 billion for the Los Angeles Lakers certainly has to make everybody happy in the National Basketball Association. Remember, the NBA at this point is also talking about what it's going to look like when they actually go ahead and sign off on some expansion NBA franchises. The two cities that will most likely get an NBA franchise are Las Vegas and most likely Seattle, with the price tags on those franchises rumored to be somewhere between $5 billion and $6 billion. So when you think about what the Los Angeles Lakers went for compared to the Boston Celtics, and you start talking about the differences in those markets, then you can sort of start to understand why the price tag was so high, especially for a team that wasn't actually for sale. Look, the Buss family has been, if you will, what I like to call house poor for a very long time. Now imagine if you owned a couple buildings and some of those buildings were actual apartment buildings that you and your family could actually live in, and that's all you had from a revenue standpoint in terms of what your family is actually bringing in financially. Well, the Los Angeles Lakers business was the only thing that the Buss family actually has invested in for the most part over the years, which means every single penny that they had invested for the most part was tied in some way to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, we could talk a little bit about local television contracts, and the local TV contract for the Los Angeles Lakers, of course, is the highest in the NBA. If you compare the television contract to the Boston Celtics television contract, you're looking at a TV contract that annually in Boston gets about $50 to $55 million. With the Los Angeles Lakers television deal next year is going to be worth close to $200 million. That's up from this past season where it was actually set at $182 million. Now, a lot of times we talk about the NBA as a whole, and we talk about the large national television contracts, and we talk about the prize pool that all the teams are ultimately sharing from. But in the NBA, you are certainly allowed to go out and get your own local television deals. So the local TV deal, as I just mentioned, for the Los Angeles Lakers is worth next season just under $200 million. That being said, when you think about the house poor family that was the Buss organization for a very long time, you can sort of understand where I'm coming from. Look, the Los Angeles Lakers did a fantastic job as an organization, despite the fact that they had a major disadvantage against most of the other teams in the NBA, which already had billionaires who bought into their teams. Those are the people with all the money in the world, whereas the Buss family, if they went to dinner with all of the other NBA owners, they certainly would be hoping that the other owners would actually pick up the tab for dinner. That is where the Buss family actually was. Now, I don't want to cry poverty for the Buss family and Jeannie Buss and the rest of the brothers involved in the organization. That's not what I'm saying. But if you compare them to the rest of the owners, for the most part, in the National Basketball Association, it is very true that the franchise that is the most glitzy and most glamorous, based there in beautiful Tinseltown in Hollywood, was actually the most cash poor team in the NBA from a logistical standpoint. Now, you have to give it to Jerry Buss, who famously found a way to actually buy the Los Angeles Lakers in 1979 for just under $70 million. At the time, that included the Forum, which would later turn into the Great Western Forum. It also included the Los Angeles Kings and a 13,000 ranch as well. That's what it took for the Buss family to actually get in bed in the National Basketball Association. So certainly today was a very good day for the Buss organization and the Buss family, who are now going to be able to pocket a significant amount of money, which I'm sure will be north, if you will, of $5 billion, that if they want, they can just cash out and go do something else. Now, at this point, the rumor on the street is that Jeannie Buss will stay as the team governor. And we all know how the team governors work in negotiations of an NBA team that's selling from one owner to another. We heard Mark Cuban say the same thing, and it didn't take long for Cuban to actually be out as the person who is in charge of the Dallas Mavericks day-to-day operations. Took less than 3 months for that to actually happen. So Wick Grossbeck, who is selling the Boston Celtics, also has a similar deal where he's theoretically still going to be in charge of the Boston Celtics for years to come. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jeannie Buss if she's really able to maintain control. But what you get with this particular deal in this particular way at this time for the Los Angeles Lakers is the firepower of a true billionaire and a true billionaires organization behind one of the most glamorous and glitzy sports organizations in the world. An organization that, quite frankly, had been cash poor throughout most of its time in Los Angeles. So if you look just at what good old Mark Walter and the TGW group has done with the Los Angeles Dodgers since they took over, a willingness to spend whatever it takes to have the Los Angeles Dodgers go deep in the playoffs every year. A willingness to be creative when it comes to their financial investments in the players as well. If you look at some of the signings that they've made and the deferral money that the Los Angeles Dodgers have put forth with some of the players on their roster, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the NBA is certainly different than Major League Baseball. The salary caps are certainly different than Major League Baseball as well. And we know that the current NBA salary cap is very clear what the penalties will be if you spend too much. And in fact, the penalties get so extreme that they ultimately end up taking draft picks away from you if you exceed the, if you will, the red line too many times over the course of a couple years. So it's not like in the NBA, you can just go spend a bunch of money and never be hit with any kind of ramifications. That being said, it certainly does open up a significant amount of flexibility for the Los Angeles Lakers organization as they move forward, that if they want to go over the salary cap for a year or two in a big way, they certainly would have the backing of a billionaire and a billionaire's fund to do it. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this particular deal. A good day for everybody involved. Adam Silver has to be ecstatic about this deal, especially as he looks to actually finalize what those price tags are actually going to be for the National Basketball Association expansion teams when they actually put those prices out officially. That's all I've got for you tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in to the NBA Rundown. As always, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.